I rise to address the highway funding issue that we're discussing today. 4 or 5 years ago, Tom Brokaw wrote a book called The Greatest Generation, and he was talking about the generation that sacrificed, I repeat, sacrificed on our behalf. They struggled through the Depression. They fought World War II. And then, when it was over, they paid the debt from World War II and built the interstate highway system. I hate to think what Tom Brokaw would call the book written about our generation, which has in effect rebuilt the World War II debt, which we're passing on to our children, and we can't even keep the interstate highway system fixed. This is shameful. And I'm here to support the Carper, Boxer, and Corker amendment because it forces us to deal with it in this Congress. It's not going to be any easier to deal with next May. Let's get it done. We have the answers. We know what we have to do. The highway system is a pay-as-you-go system, and the problem is now we're going more than we're paying. The gasoline tax hasn't been raised since 1993, 21 years ago, but the cost of maintaining the highways, of course, has been raised precipitously. Not fixing infrastructure is debt. A lot of people around here talk about debt, and we're worried about the debt that we're passing on to our children, and I'm worried about it too, but I want to make the point that if you don't fix a bridge or don't fix a highway or don't fix an airport, that's debt too because our children are going to have to fix it. And when they get around to it, they're going to have to pay more for it. Senator Corker used the term generational theft. That's what it is. Our generation is giving ourselves tax cuts, borrowing the money to pay for those tax cuts, and our kids are going to have to pay it. That's not a tax cut. That's a shift of a tax from us to our children and our grandchildren. It's wrong. And to think that the generation that went through the Depression, fought World War II, paid for World War II, and then built the interstate highway system in the 50s and 60s, and then we can't even keep it paved, and we have rebuilt the debt from World War II with nothing much to show for it. It's just unconscionable. There are a lot of problems that we deal with here that are hard and complicated. And I deal with, on armed services and intelligence, some very complicated problems that are really troubling and difficult to figure out what the right thing to do is. This one is simple. Pay your bills. It couldn't be more straightforward. Pay your bills. If you want to drive on the highways, have the potholes filled, we got to pay for it. And to delay this into next May, it's just that much easier. And then we're going to start talking about presidential campaigns and other campaigns, and 16 is going to be coming up, and there are always reasons not to do it. This is the 11th time we've punted on this issue. This is what the American public is sick and tired of. They're sick and tired of us not doing our basic job, and there couldn't be a more basic job than fixing and paying for and maintaining your infrastructure. So I hope that we can pass this amendment, and yes, it's going to go back to the House, and the House has said, well, we're not going to accept it, but let's see, let's put something good over there, shorten the time, get to it this year in December, November or December, and let's solve it. It's not going to be any easier to solve in May. I would argue it would probably be harder. But I think it's time for us to start talking straight to the American people and say, we've got to pay our bills. And that's what this amendment and that's what this bill is all about. I want that book to talk about another greatest generation, not the worst generation that just passed all the bills on to our kids. Thank you. I yield the floor.